Mr. Warren, how are we doing?
I'm all right, Mr. Spencer and Mr. Jake. How are you?
How are you, Frank? Good to see you. You look well.
I don't know about that, my old son. How are you?
Hey, you're looking good. You're looking good. You've had a good summer so far, or you've been away, or?
I've had a couple of operations, but I'm all right.
Oh, have you? Bloody hell. Looking good for it.
Well, I don't know about that.
You're soldiering on, Frank. You're soldiering on, mate. You certainly are.
I've got no choice.
Yeah,
Well, listen, mate, I've got to say, Frank, you're doing a great job. You really are. And I mean, let's get straight into it. It's the really heavyweight chat. Heavyweight chat, mate. You know, let's start off with a big fella, Tyson Fury and Ngannou. Fights made October the 28th. Tell us a little bit about that, Frank, how that come about. I know there's a little bit of controversy surrounding some people talking about the fight that they wanted with Alexander Usyk, etc., etc. Tell us about it, Frank.
Right. So what happened was we were trying to make the fights, two fights, one with Usyk, the other one with AJ. We made offers to both of them, written offers, and also, called them. Neither of those happened because both of them were waiting for this big show to be put on in Saudi in December. And that's the reason it didn't happen. In the meantime, a massive offer was made by a different group from Saudi to make the fight with Ngannou. So we've taken it because it's a massive event. For Tyson, it's going to draw a massive amount of publicity. It's the opening of the Riyadh Festival, which is quite a prestigious event in the Middle East. And he's got the prime place there by opening it up. Come the week of the fights, all you're going to read about, all you're going to see in the newspapers. I know all you haters all say, yeah, okay, we've heard it all before. We'll see whether I'm proved right or not. But it's a huge event. And Tyson, we couldn't make those fights with the other two. I've heard all these things coming out about, Usyk, we ducked him, or Tyson's ducked him. That. Where is the offers from them? We've had not one single offer from either of those camps for Tyson to fight. Not one. Not a single one. And regarding that Ngannou fight, Hearn himself was trying to make the fight, as you know, with AJ earlier this year. I think then AJ came out a couple of days or so, or came out about a week ago in another interview. Eddie Hearn said that AJ didn't want it under any circumstances. He only wanted to fight for the world heavyweight title. Then why didn't he fight Tyson? Why did he go and fight that warm-up fight he had? And why is he fighting Dillian Whyte? If he wanted to fight for the title, he could have had Tyson on a 60-40 basis. Mm-hmm. So that's
Frank,
it.
You're right in what you say there with this Ngannou fight, as in this has a huge crossover appeal. And whatever people say about it and the frustrations of not getting this undisputed fight on, that undisputed fight is still there and he's still going to be there. And I believe that we do get that. But in the meantime, whilst you're doing that, you've done a deal with a different group of Saudis, which was a great move, by the way, fantastic move. But the numbers on this, people saying that they won't watch it is a load of bollocks, because they'll be sitting there. Let's say the fight goes on at 10 p.m. At 9:45, they'll be sitting there tapping their fingers.
Press the button, isn't they?
I know, because Ngannou's the best of what he does in the UFC, mate. And there will be that appeal, because I've spoken to a couple of people that are very casual boxing fans and love UFC. And so one of the guys that I spoke to, right, was one of the guys that I train. I was speaking to him and I said, "Oh yeah," he said to me, "Why is Tyson taking that? Well, he's got to be mad, and he'll get murdered." I went, "No, mate, I think he'll play with Ngannou, if I'm totally honest." I went, because it's in his sport. But this guy couldn't like work out how Fury had a chance against Ngannou, because he's a very casual fan. So what I'm saying is, the reason I'm saying that story is because the crossover appeal, there'll be huge numbers on it.
Yeah, well,
I agree. I mean, first of all, is that there is a bigger audience out there than the boxing audience.
Yeah.
And come the week of the fight, that's all you're going to read or hear about. And we're going to tap into that. And the idea is to draw eyeballs to what is going on. And it'll be a massive event. And I've been involved in lots of events over the years. I don't need to hype this up or anything, because the deal's done. But the fact of the matter is, this will be the biggest event I've ever been involved with in my time in promoting. And besides promoting boxing, I promoted Frank Sinatra. I was involved in Pavarotti's things at London Arena. I've done tennis tournament with McEnroe and Ed Burke. So I've done plenty of stuff over the years. I'm telling you, this is the biggest biggest, this will be the biggest event ever. And it is a game changer in as much that, you know, we've all been waiting, right, not for the, and I don't blame anybody for it, but we've all been waiting since last year to make this big, you know, the big event that was due to take place in Saudi with Skills Challenge. And it just couldn't happen for the various reasons, you know, mostly because they say the venue's not going to be ready. So if Tyson hadn't done this fight, there'd have been no fight this year at all, because they've pushed back the December date. The only reason AJ's fighting Dillian is because they've pushed back the December date. Otherwise, he wouldn't be fighting. And Usyk, we forced the issue with our guy, with Daniel Dubois, who's his mandatory. So we forced all those to happen. But look, this is what it is. The undercard's going to be fantastic. You're going to love the undercard. That's going to appeal. We've got the crossover fans, you've got the boxing fans, you've got the UFC fans, and you've got the general public. It will be absolutely huge. And you can say, you know, everybody can say, oh, silly old bastard, and so forth to me. Come the week and after this fight, everybody will know about it. They will know what's going on.
Can you give us a little taster of what's going on that undercard, or is that still under wraps at the moment?
I'm going to give you a taster, an exclusive. There's some cracking fights to be announced.
That's good.
Yes, I sort of worked that bit out, if I'm honest. But
as you said it, you knew what was coming, Spence.
I did, Frank. I did. But
and Frank, how does it work? Practice? Is it an exhibition match? Is Fury WC belt going to be on the line? Is it going to?
No, that was Tom Pepper coming out of all that about the exhibition. It is a fight. They're wearing the gloves. It's a 10-round fight, and it's under boxing rules. So you look at what's going on. You've got Tyson, who's obviously he's the lineal champion. He's WBC champion. He's a boxer. You've got the other guy who Spencer said earlier is the best heavyweight of his sport, UFC.
Yeah,
he's the highest. In the Guinness Book of Records, they've got him down as the hardest puncher. So I look at the event, the fight, and what do I think? I don't think anybody can beat Tyson at the moment, by the way. So I don't think he can beat him. But I know he can whack, and you got to think in his mind, the only thing he can get in his mind, he's going to have to knock Tyson over. I can't see him out boxing. I'm being honest about it. So he's going to come. I've hardly ever watched any UFC, but since this, I've looked at his fights. He's going to come and throw bombs. So whilst it lasts, it's going to be exciting. That's what it'll be. But it will be exciting while it lasts.
And someone can get knocked out, Frank. That's what, because a lot of people, like you say, there's been a lot of speculation over whether it's a little fight. What do they call it? An exhibition, sorry.
Exhibitions. You've seen exhibitions. And over the years, exhibitions, you wear a head guard and you wear big gloves.
Yeah.
It's like exhibition is a spar. This ain't a spar. This is going to be a tear up while it lasts. And that's what it'll be. And you can't, I'm not going to dress it up any other way. That's what it'll be. Because the only chance, in my opinion, Ngannou's got is to go and knock him over. And one thing about him, that's what he's got plenty of balls. As I say, I've watched these things on his stuff on TV. He will come and let him go. That's it. So that's what it'll be.
And sorry, Frank, is the WBC belt on the line for this? Or
no, absolutely not. No.
No, it wouldn't make sense because Ngannou.
He's not racing. He's not racing.
This
is an event. This is an event of two guys from their two respective top of the game at their two respective disciplines. That's what it is.
I've got to tell you, mate, I'm excited. Do you know what I mean?
I think it's going to be fun, isn't it?
You're going to be even more excited because I've got you on the undercard.
Frank, you just made my day, mate.
You're fighting McGregor.
I thought you said
comeback.
Yeah, exactly. I thought you said
I'm talking about Fred McGregor.
Works down the chip shop down the road. Yeah, brilliant. Listen, Frank, you mentioned another heavyweight there that you've got. You've worked magnificently well to get him in this position to fight Alexander Usyk, the unified champ, out in Poland. I know he's out there at the moment. I spoke to Don Charles yesterday, actually. Me and Don are very close. Spoke to Don. Don told me the work he's doing out there in Spain at the moment, they're up there in high altitude. And he said, Spence, I've got to tell you, the kids' athleticism, which we know anyway, we know what we got to do. We know we're the huge underdog, which takes the pressure off Daniel. This is all about opportunity. And he said, I know the sparring he's got out there, but obviously I'm not allowed to mention that. He said to me, and you know as well, Frank, he's got world-class sparring out there. And he said, what he's doing with these guys, he went, mate, you're in for a shock. Now, I know you've said that as well, Frank, but, you know, you've got to give Dubois a chance because he's young, he's hungry. And when you're young, as you get older as a fighter, you think a little bit more and you start, do you know what I mean? But when you're young, you think you're a little bit invincible and you roll the dice and you'll go for it. And that's exactly what he's got to do against Usyk, isn't it?
Well, I mean, what I do, I look, Usyk's a magnificent cruiserweight champion. You know, probably the best of his generation. No doubt about that. Come up a weight for Chaz Witherspoon, you know, which you understand, you're coming up a weight. So that was a pretty, you know, that was a fight that you'd expect to win. Fought Derek Chisora, tough guy. I would back, and I mean this with the greatest respect, I would back Daniel against Derek Chisora all day long. And I tried to make that fight quite a few times with Derek. And I'm not being disparaging of Derek, but that's what. And Derek gave him a couple of problems early on in that fight. And it wasn't until the latter rounds that he got. And then he's fought AJ twice. And AJ in the first fight, I didn't think he was at the races. In the second fight, he fought a bit better. And I'm not being disrespectful for AJ, but AJ is not the fighter he was. Yeah. So I genuinely feel this is a fight where he's fighting a guy who's young. I mean, he's 38, so Daniel's 25, who's got good jab, good speed, got real good firepower in both hands. Naturally big, heavyweight, and as you say, got nothing to lose. Yeah. This is going to be a test of Daniel's temperament. I don't just test his ability. He's in with a good class act in Usyk. But I think this is the fight that we're going to find out more about Usyk than about Daniel, because I think he can do it. And if he does it, it's brilliant. I know he's a big underdog, but for me, I do fancy him, or I wouldn't make the fight. I fancy he's got a great chance in winning those 3 belts.
I spoke to Alexander Krasek. Sorry, Jake. Krasek and about this fight and about taking place. They recognise that Daniel is a live wire. He said that firstly. He said he's big, he's athletic, and he can whack. And if he hits you, you go to sleep. So Usyk has got to be at the top of his game. But he said to me, the reason that they've done that is because 2 days before it's Ukrainian Independence Day, a couple of days before, they want him to have a homecoming because of what's going on in the Ukraine at the moment. They put it 50 miles from the border, and he told me this, where they've put the fight, there's 250,000 Ukrainians that live there, and some of them will be able to get over the border as well. And they've made tickets as low for the Ukrainian people, as low as, like, it's in a 43,000 stadium, Jake, and they made tickets as low as £9 each, so that their people, so he's doing it for his people, do you know what I mean? Which I think is magnificent as well, Frank, with the world that we're living in right now. I think with all of that as well, it's going to be an amazing event, right?
It is. There's no doubt about that. And it's terrible what's happening to Ukraine with what Russia has done. I mean, it's like the bully. You know, we're in the boxing business. They're the bullies. They've been. But having said that, that is the test that we're going to see what happens with Daniel. That's going to be his temperament. What I've said to him all along is, when you get in that ring, there might be 43,000 people outside the ring cheering the man on. It's a lot of people, by the way, but inside the ring, it's just you and him. It's a bit like when Tyson Fury went to Germany and fought Klitschko, and there was 54,000 people in the venue, all of them to a man behind Klitschko, and he took him to school. He used his attributes and boxed very cleverly. It's like when we went to the States, and same thing with Tyson, and the same thing happened there, where it was against Deontay Wilder. You know, he had no chance. There was all the Americans, and we've seen what he did in those 3 fights. And it's not that, you know, it's not going to be a walk. It's not a walkover. Don't get me wrong. As I say, it will be a test of his temperament, but it's not like it's not happened before. It's not like I didn't take Danny Williams over to fight Mike Tyson when everybody, well, he must have been like 2,000 to 1 against winning that fight. And I fancied him to win it if he could withstand the first 3 rounds storm that he was going to get from Mike Tyson. And he did do it. Joe Calzaghe, Jeff Lacey. We look at a lot of things over the years where it's come right for our guys. But this is a tough fight. But if he does it, and the prize, those 3 belts, it's worth it. Yeah, it's worth it for that prize. I mean, how would you like to be in that position, Spence, where you can, you know, or any fighter, I can go and win the 3 belts.
Yeah, you got to take it.
It's the dream, mate. It's the dream. And what people have got to recognize is, right, it's the opportunity. And whenever someone gets an opportunity, they're an underdog, a fucking huge underdog. And that's the history of the sport. And that's the beauty of the sport, that you get the opportunity and you're written off, and you look through the history. Like, no one expected Buster Douglas to knock out Tyson out in Tokyo, but in 1990. But them sort of fights happened. You know what I mean? Like, and so it is about opportunity. So I get it, Frank, and I think that you manoeuvred him into an unbelievable position. And I think it's all about his mindset and the fact that when you've got 43,000, because I say there's 43,000 in the stadium, 42,999,000 of them will be Ukrainians. And it's about the temperament and the mindset, and that's where the fight can be won and lost. And let's hope that Daniel can keep his cool under them circumstances.
Absolutely. And, you mentioned about dreams. Sometimes dreams come true.
Absolutely.
We don't want no nightmares. We want a dream to come true.
Totally agree with that. Listen, staying on the heavyweight subjects, Frank, AJ's boxing Alexander Usyk on the 12th. What you AJ's fighting Dillian Whyte on the 12th. What are you expecting in that fight? Do you think it's a high risk fight for Anthony Joshua, or do you think that it's just like a warm up before he boxes Deontay Wilder?
I don't think that he wanted to fight him, my opinion, but I think the circumstances were what they were, that the December date in Saudi, is not happening. And I think that's why they made it. He didn't look too good of his own recognition. He said last time out, AJ said he didn't think that he looked his best, and I agree with that. Dillian's last fight, he'd done what he had to do. This time round, it's going to be quite interesting because, if I was Dillian, I'd go shit or bust.
Yeah, we said the same thing. We was talking about this before you come on, Frank, and said, listen, in Dillian's position right now, I'd roll the fucking dice and treat it as a 3-round fight and go out there swinging, because
I would do. I'd put it on him.
Yeah.
Because he's not looked great in his last few fights, and I found when it is put on him, he's not as gung ho as he used to be.
Yeah,
he backs up. I'm just saying how I see it. I might be wrong.
Yeah,
but I think he's got a great opportunity to beat him.
Yeah. It's definitely an interesting fight now. Like you say, then we go back 2015, and AJ was sort of believing in himself a little bit more.
On his way up. Yeah,
absolutely. So it's interesting to see that. Do you think that we get that fight with AJ versus Deontay Wilder? Will that happen? They're talking about sort of January, February time, Frank. And do you think, will we see, hopefully all the heavyweights come through, do you think that we do see Tyson Fury, Alexander Usyk early part of next year?
I think the situation with AJ, I don't know. It's where the skill challenge move forward, because remember, it's always going to be a big event with Tyson against Usyk on the card. Yeah. That was going to be the main event.
Sure.
That's not happening at the moment, and we'll see what happens in with Usyk and his fight with Daniel. Who knows what that? I hope we get the result on that. Yeah. And then you've got Tyson, which I expect him to come for his fight. But the bottom line of it is, they need Tyson.
Yeah.
Tyson's, even to the haters, Tyson's the guy. Mm. He's the one who's the number one. He's the one that delivers the big crowds at the moment. And I think if Usyk were to beat Daniel, and I don't think he will, but if he were, then he's going to have to come over and speak to us and our team,
right,
as regarding making that fight, because it's changed. The game's changed.
But would your people out in Saudi have interest in that, Frank? Because I know it's a different party. I know it's a different group.
They've got massive interest in Tyson, who's the number one heavyweight. That's where they're at. I mean, look, you look at what's going on in Saudi. They're going for the best footballers in the world, the golfing, everything, and they're making it a sports destination, and they have the resources to make these things happen. And I believe.
Is your deal with them, Frank? Is that a long-term deal? Or is it just with Tyson? I mean, what is the situation with that?
I'm not going to go into the details, if you don't mind, over that. But it will, it will all be revealed in due course. But I can't at this moment go into any
ongoing negotiations. Yeah.
we're always in negotiations every day.
Brilliant, brilliant. Listen, let's jump on to September the 23rd. Joe Joyce versus Zhang 2. That's a massive risk for Joe Joyce. That I respect him for that, right, Frank? Because when that first come about, I went, fuck, I wouldn't have taken that straight away.
Yeah.
But seen Joe Joyce up since then, and he said, listen, all the heavyweights are messing around. We're living in an era where no one wants to fight anyone. He said, now I'm showing that I've got the balls to go back in there. Respect him for that. So that's a tough fight, that.
It is. I expected him to win the first one, to be quite honest.
I did.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
But he got that eye injury. He was getting caught with that southpaw jab, and it just, and Zang boxed really well, managed to close up his eye by using it. And I think Joe suffered a bit, or was struggling a bit with the southpaw stance. But he's been in there with him now. It's not like Joe's not been round the block or anything. He knows what he's got in front of him. He's got to make some adjustments to do that. I generally think if he had not have had that, that's my daughter saying goodbye and my granny. If he knows if he doesn't make those adjustments, it could be the same thing again. But I generally think if he never got the eye injury, which Zang boxed well and capitalised on it, I think he may have gone on and won the fight. So this is his biggest fight of his career, because it is, at this moment in time, his chance to get himself back on the top table.
Is it that you offered him, Frank, or did he call for the rematch?
He called for it. He called for the rematch. We were trying to make Zang and Tyson, but he called for the rematch. And you got to take you got to respect him for that. And I do respect him for it. And I like Joe a lot. I mean, he's one of the nicest guys to work with. He's such a nice fella, and he'll fight anybody. No messing about with him. I mean, he's just that's what he is. He's a warrior, and I think you're going to get a really good fight again this time. Obviously, I hope it's going. I believe it will be a different result. But the other fellas probably thinks he's got his number.
Yeah. What do you think Joe needs to do differently, Frank, in the rematch?
Move his head.
Yeah,
that's a good start. That's a good start.
Yeah, we said that. Yeah.
Move his head, and I think he's got to get that jab going. He's got a jab with him. He can't be letting the fella get his jab off while he's waiting to throw a big shot. He's got a jab with him, and he's head movement, and I think he's got to get him through 4 or 5 rounds and then start putting it on him. Because I like Zang. He's a tough guy, but having said that, I think that Joe's got a great motor in him, and I think he can pull away from him in the latter stages of the fight.
Yeah,
do you think, Frank, sorry, James.
Yeah.
Frank, do you think that Joe made a calculated gamble on coming in too light last time, and that worked against him? Because I said that I couldn't, but when I saw him, when we done the press conference and whatnot, I was like, fucking, he's way too light here. And the punch resistance seemed to have gone to a certain extent, if I'm honest. People might not understand that about heavyweights, but Joe he looked body beautiful, but it was not where he was suited, was it?
No, I thought when he come in lighter, I thought it'd be a bit more speed.
Yeah,
but I would like to see, looking back on it, the benefit of hindsight, see him coming a little bit heavier in his normal fighting weight. However, I can see where they were coming from with that. Yeah, but he just didn't cope with it. He did not cope. That fella Zang got his jab off very quickly in that fight, catching him with that, and he was catching him with it, and just closed his eye. And you look, when you can't see out of your eye, one of your eyes, everything's out of whack. You don't see the punches coming. You're only obviously looking out of one eye. You close one eye and everything's. You're closing your right. Everything's to the left. Yeah. And so or right. Same against the right. And that's why I think he was getting clips a lot. But most important thing is head movement. Mm-hmm. And he does. Let's get it right. In a lot of his fights, he's taken punches to land his stuff. Yeah. And he's always got the better of everybody in doing that, to be quite honest. But this time round, I think the eye just closed too quickly and he couldn't get off. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. All right. Brilliant. All right, Frank. Yeah. I think you've sorted us out on the old heavyweight confusion. Well, right now. If you want to see heavyweights, you want all the important fights that are going on. They're involving Queensberry fighters. Every one of the fighters, I'm talking about the championships or eliminators are all involving Queensberry fighters. That's where we're at the moment.
Brilliant. Well, listen,
100%,
that's great news for me, Frank. 'Cause I know that you do a lot of work with Talk Sports. So hopefully I'll be at a lot of them.
We're looking forward. We only do it because of you. You know that. It's all down to you.
I'll let the bosses know that tomorrow, Frank. Don't worry.
Tell Liam. When you speak to Liam, Sam, he's told me, Liam, if it weren't for me, he'd be gone.
I'm gonna use. In fact, I'll play him this clip. Brilliant. Thanks so much for your time, Frank. It's always
Thank you, fellas. Thanks what you do for boxing. It's a brilliant show, and it's enjoyable talking to the both of you. Love
bless
it.
you,
so
Frank.
much, Frank.
Thanks so much, mate.
Cheers,
Cheers,
mate.
fellas. All the
Have
best.
a great summer. See you soon.
Bye.